Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us today on Wednesday, the 24th of February 2021 on Vision Store's Exploring Technology webinar with David Woodbridge on Apple Accessibility and Beyond. My name is Tony Wu, and I'll be one of your hosts today, and I'm joined by my fellow colleagues, David Woodbridge, who's our Retail National Assistive Technology Advisor, and Alex Lonsdale, who is one of our retail coordinators based in Bendigo. We also have a very special guest joining us on the panel today, Greg Alchin, who is an award-winning exclusive design specialist, keynote speaker, and disability advocate with over 30 years of experience. I'd like to begin the session by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I'll also like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Please note that only some parts of the webinar will be recorded, and you can access the recording later by visiting Vision Store's YouTube channel. This is an interactive session, so please submit any questions that you may have for David and Greg throughout the session by using our chat box. For those that use a screen reader, you can access the chat function through keystroke Alt-H or Command-H if you use a Mac. We'll answer as many questions as we can and as many as time permits towards the end of the session. Just a brief overview of today's session. David will share a new feature called BackTap that everyone can benefit from, and then he will share his experience on the Apple Watch and the new health and fitness features. Greg will then help us all personalize our devices, diving in the settings to adjust controls to get the most of our iPhones and iPads for vision and security. Welcome, David, Alex, and Greg.
So I'm just going to give a few comments about the LiDAR, and then I'm going to move on to, like Tony mentioned, BackTap. And then I'm going to talk about one of my favorite Apple devices, which is the Apple Watch. So LiDAR. So in that short demos that you watched, that was pretty much real-time stuff that we were doing, and it really does come in handy. I actually do use it on the train to find out where people are, particularly if they're 1.5 meters away from me. It actually works quite well. I wear AirPods, so for that demo, we actually had it with just the speaker in the phone. So normally in the coffee shop or in the train, which we didn't do in this one, or outside, I'm normally wearing my AirPods Pro. So normally the sound's going through my headphones, because otherwise it'll probably start freaking people out a bit to hear my phone going beep, 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 and start talking at them. The second thing to keep in mind about LiDAR is don't have your camera app running all the time, sorry, the magnification app running all the time, because what it will do is, because it's using machine learning, the camera's running, LiDAR's running, everything's working, it's going to start draining your battery. And it's very quick to start and stop the magnification app, particularly once you've gone into settings, accessibility, magnifier, you've turned magnifier on, and in the actual application itself, you've turned on people detection, because it really is fast. And the two ways that actually three ways I tend to launch it is, first of all, once you've enabled magnify, it appears as an app in your app library, which is sort of right at the end of your home screens, but you can drag that to whatever home screen you want to. So I've got it sitting on my front home screen. So you can just double tap on it if you're using VoiceOver, or if you're using Siri, you can just say the magic word, HEY Siri, open magnifier to launch it. If you're using VoiceOver, you can do 4 fingers, and I always get this one back to front. It's 4 fingers 3 times, right? So people might think, well, that's similar to other commands, but it's not. So 4 fingers 3 times. And I normally do, I don't know why I do this. I normally tuck my thumb under my fingers and just do your pinky to your index finger to do 1, 2, 3 with your 4 fingers. That works beautifully to turn the people detection on. So literally what it's doing, it's running the magnifier app and off you go. And one I'll mention in a minute, which is BackTap. I can do it with that as well. But literally, most of the time I just say HEY Siri, open magnifier, and off it goes. The other thing is, sometimes you want to be hands-free. So occasionally when, I've got my cane and my guide dog, and I've got my computer bag and all that sort of stuff, what I've done is, there's a really good website in Australia called camgo, camgo.com.au, and they've got a great website, and it's mainly for like extreme sports, like BMX bikes and mountain climbing and that sort of stuff. But they sell a really good thing called the chest harness for your smartphone for about $39. So it just goes around your chest on a strap. It's got a mount that you put your smartphone into, in this case, the iPhone 12 Pro. So that's literally giving you hands free. So what I tend to do is I can say the magic word HUI Siri start magnifier or run magnifier, off it goes, and I've got my AirPods on, it just starts going. And then I can just keep walking around hands free, and then I can just, do the command to shut down the magnifier when I need to. So that also comes in quite handy as well. So you can use it hands free if you wish. But besides that, look, it's only going to get better. We've got 3 apps currently that use it besides including the magnifier app. So we've got the Super LiDAR. That one's interesting because it also tries to do object detection as well. So it will tell you how far an object's away by vibrating your iPhone. And the other one, of course, is the CAI app from Microsoft in the World channel on that app. And that one's interesting because you can drop these things called beacons, like you can normally do when you're out doing GPS. You can drop these things called beacons inside where it recognizes the chair or a door, and then you can actually navigate your way back to it. And that's using both LiDAR for proximity detection and a bit of augmented reality with all the object detection in the room as well. So that's actually pretty good. Now, I did mention before, I was going to talk about back tap. So let me move on to back tap now, and
Speech off.
I'm just going to turn my phone off at the moment because it's going to talk too much, and I just turned speech off for some odd reason. All right, so back tap is simply doing and I've got my phone locked now, doing a 1-finger double tap like that, or 1-finger triple tap, 1, 2, 3. Now, it just so happens that we've got 2 modes of doing this. If you're a non-voiceover user, there's a way of doing it, and if you're a voiceover user, there's a way of doing it. So for non-voiceover users, if you go into Settings, Accessibility, Touch, and then go into Back Tap, you can set up either a 1-finger double tap or a 1-finger triple tap to do all types of different system things on the back of the phone, which actually works extremely nicely. It's almost like having a version of Assistive Touch that's also in there. But rather than being on your screen of your phone, your touch screen, it's on the back of your phone, just using the accelerometer to recognize that the phone's being tapped. For voiceover users in particular, there's a different way to turn that on. So in effect, you could have 2 settings. You could have the one that I've just mentioned, the system way to do it. And once VoiceOver's on, it will overwrite that system one and then give you VoiceOver's own one. So for example, if I turn the VoiceOver back tap on in Settings, Accessibility, VoiceOver, Commands, and then Touch Gestures. And by the way, it's right down the bottom of that whole gesture list. And again, it's you assign what you want for the 2-finger tap or the 3-finger tap. For example, on my phone, I've got my 1-finger double tap to set to start and stop music playing. So it's a magic finger, normally 2-finger double tap, or to answer and hang up a phone call. So when my phone rings, I can simply do a 1-finger double tap on the back of my phone, answer a call. When I want to hang it up, I can just do a 1-finger double tap again and hang up the call. And then, as I mentioned before, when I was talking about Magnify app and LiDAR, my 3-finger triple tap is set to launch Magnifier. So I don't have to do that 4 fingers 3 times with VoiceOver. I can just do a 1-finger triple tap on the back of my phone, and I can do it that way. So if you want to use the system way to do it, feel free. If you want to use the VoiceOver way, you can do that as well, or you can do both at the same time. So for example, my system one without VoiceOver running, 1-finger double tap launches Siri, 1-finger triple tap starts VoiceOver. When VoiceOver is on, like I said, 1-finger double tap does the magic tap, 1 finger 3 times does the Magnify app for LiDAR use. So that really does come in quite handy. And look, it works whether at the moment I've got my iPhone 12 Pro without a case on it. It works fine. It also works with a case on the phone as well. Sometimes it's like any gesture on the iPhone, even the touch screen. If you do it too slowly, it won't activate. If you do it too fast, it may not activate as well. So it does take a little bit of while to get used to the rhythm, but overall, it's actually a really, really good feature. All right, so that's the magnifier and that's back tap. Now I get to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is always to do with the Apple Watch. So the first thing I want to remind people about the Apple Watch is there are still 3 models available. So we've got the S3, which I'm currently wearing on my right wrist here, sort of slightly back to front. The Apple Watch SE, and the Apple Watch S6. Now, for all intents and purposes, I would probably not recommend the S3 anymore for a few reasons. Number one, it's not going to work with the new Apple stuff called family sharing, which is where you can actually use one iPhone to take care of up to 6 different Apple Watches. So the S3 won't work with that due to the changes in the antenna and so on, and some of the other hardware. Number 2, the S3 now is only a GPS model, which is one of the reasons why it doesn't work with the family sharing type stuff. So it's only GPS only. And number 3, what's important for me, if I just hold my Apple Watch, this is my S6.
1304. Narrower. 21 degrees most. 1304.
That's the volume of my Apple Watch S6. Now, if I do the same thing on my S3.
Home. 13 ABC News. Activity.
That's the volume
Alarms. App Store.
of the
Button.
Apple Watch
Alarms.
of the S3.
Activity. ABC
And that's,
News.
I would say
Button.
that's almost about a half, if not a bit more, quieter than the S6. And if I had an SE here today, it'd be the SE and the S6 are both the same volume, quite loud. So I've got them both set at 100%. And as you can tell, the S6 is far superior than the S3 in volume. So really that lends us down to, I tend to recommend either the SE or the S6. And when it comes down to thinking about which one would I like to use, the main difference for me to do with the S6 over the SE is the fact that there is the blood oxygen reading meter or sensor in the S6. So I can check my blood oxygen level anytime I want. And that's available in the S6, not the SE. And as a blind person, this one doesn't particularly worry me either, but there's always on display on the S6 and not on the SE. But as far as I'm concerned, they're, for all intents and purposes, if you're not going to worry about the blood monitoring for the oxygen level, then the SC is perfectly fine. So the other thing with both watches, so this is on the SE and the S6, not the S3, is 2 things that my wife has used is emergency SOS and fall detection. So with fall detection, basically it's based around the accelerometer, so and a few other things. But if the watch detects that you've had a fall, it will then automatically contact, or not automatically, you've got time to actually stop it, contact emergency services and your contact person that you've designated. So my wife has a neurological condition and she actually does fall. So she's luckily fallen and then being able to stop the emergency contact. But if she couldn't stop the emergency contact going out, she would be able to talk to emergency services, and the watch would automatically contact one of her contacts as well, which comes in extremely handy. And both watches, the SE and the S6, will also do emergency SOS, and as I said, plus fall detection as well. The trick with fall detection, by the way, is that if you're over 65, it's on automatically. If you're under 65, it will not turn on automatically. So my wife, who's 40, she had to go and turn it on manually because otherwise it wouldn't have been turned on. So that's just a bit of a tip there. The other... Sorry, I just had to pause because every time Zoom talks, it blocks out my speech. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to talk about, particularly with the Apple Watch, is this is the one thing that I use all the time, is particularly probably in COVID a bit.
1307.
We've tended to be sort of quite lazy, and the thing I use my Apple Watch for all the time is
moving 80%,
checking my
exercising 80%, standing 67%.
Okay, so I've been moving about
Double tap to
78%,
open
exercising
activity.
80%, and moving, whatever the last one was today, 67%. So what this means in reality is basically the moving one is basically how many calories you're burning. So if you're moving around, walking, sitting up and down, not sitting on your bottom all day. The exercise one is quite tricky, and this is a couple of good tips here for the exercise one. The exercise one will only kick in when your heart rate increases above a certain number. So you could effectively go for a 5-mile walk or 5-kilometer walk, and the exercise ring on the Apple Watch will not move. Your movement one might be up there at 100%, but your exercise won't, because you haven't actually done any exercise that gets your heart rate up, which is what exercise is supposed to be all about. Now, the second tip is that if you don't choose and use the workout app on the watch itself, so let's say you're going for an indoor walk on a treadmill, you're going for an outdoor walk, you're going on the bicycle, you're going to do boxing, you're going for an ocean swim, anything like that. If you don't put the watch in that workout routine, it just assumes you're going for a brisk walk, which can get very disappointing, because I know that when I do boxing for 30 minutes, that's a lot different from me going for a brisk walk for 30 minutes. I'm doing a lot more exercise in boxing, or sparring as I like to call it, than I am going for a walk, a brisk walk. So what I normally do in the mornings, I've got a routine, and I would just say things like start boxing workout for 30 minutes, or start indoor walk, i.e. treadmill for 15 minutes, and so on. And the nice thing about these workouts is that you can stack them all together. So let's say I'm doing my normal routine, I can say start stepper workout for 2 minutes. When that's finished, rather than saying stop, I just say start hand cycle workout for 2 minutes, start indoor walk, or start another exercise for 2 minutes. And then when I'm finished, I press the done or the finish button, and then it brings all those exercises back into one stats list on the screen, and I can see how I go. Now, Apple's also done a really cool thing in the workout one, which is really nice for us blind folks, and it's called Walk With Me. And what it is, they've got some, I don't want to call them inspirational people, I want to call them high profile people that are sharing their stories and their life, their ambitions, their ups and downs, all that sort of cool stuff that we love to listen to about people's lives who have achieved particularly things in their lives. And so while they're chatting, going for a walk through the park or near the ocean, of course, you can hear the crunch of gravel, the birds singing, the wind blowing, people riding past on their bikes while they're talking. And they also play their favorite music while you're going for a quote walk with them. And also, too, if you've got sight, little photos appear on your Apple Watch screen. So they might talk about a favorite tree or a favorite sunset that inspires them, and that's what appears on your Apple Watch screen. So that's actually really, really cool as well. But I must say, going for a 40-minute walk with these folks, and it goes from, say, about 20 minutes up to 40, because the whole thing is wrapped around them talking, they're playing their sort of 3 or 4 favorite tracks. It's amazing how much time can go when you're just sitting back, listening to people talk about their lives. And it's just a wonderful way to do it. I just find sometimes, going through my workout routines, there's normally 6 routines and I've got to repeat them 4 times. It gets a bit boring. But literally, starting my workout on the treadmill, so indoor walk, and then going for a walk for a person that you can listen to is absolutely brilliant. And it looks like that Apple brings about one of these new ones out, and I could be wrong, about once a week or once every 2 weeks, and you can always go back and re-listen to folks. So that's also really good. The other thing I wanted to mention about the Apple Watch, which is actually very cool, and I do this all the time, it drives my wife nuts, is sometimes she forgets to come and pick me up from the station. So what I can do now, I'm going to do this to the intercom in the toy room where I'm currently sitting. So if I do this, intercom, toy room, can you pick me up from the station?
Intercom to toy room, can you pick me up from the station?
Can you pick me up from the station? There we go. So that was the intercom going off in my toy room. And yes, it is called my toy room because I've got all my toys in here. They're techie toys rather than Lego and so on. So that's actually works really well. Now, normally I wouldn't just do it to the toy room. My wife's working today. She's on phone calls in a conference, so I don't want to disturb her. But normally I would just say on my Apple Watch or my iPhone, or even just the HomePod itself, if I was somewhere else, intercom, and then say a message, and it goes to all HomePods in the actual house. So I think I've got, what have I got? 7 HomePods spread around the house. So they just all go. And then with Find My on my Apple Watch, after I sort of said the message, I can just say to everybody, so I can just check on Find My and see where the person, as in my wife, has left home and she's on her way to pick me up. So between Intercom and Find My, it works really well. Just getting back to that message, I'll just do this quickly. Walk with me, and I can always get into the way. You actually look in the workout app on the Apple Watch, or if you look in the fitness app on your iPhone, it's in there, and you can actually add those workouts to actually add those workouts in any way to go to your Apple Watch. Absolutely beautiful. So the intercom version with the HomePods works really well. And the last thing I want to talk about, because I've just realized I've hit about 20 minutes, because I am timing myself on my Braille display. Speaking of Braille displays, if I turn my Braille display on and I wake up my Apple Watch, I am now...
Maps. Breathe. Workout. Mail.
I'm actually navigating my Apple Watch with my Braille display. So I've got alarm on the Braille display, world clock, stopwatch, and if I press the command on the Braille keyboard to go home,
Watch face.
13:15, pressing the right button, Narara, breathe, moving. I can read it 82%. I can pan, go to the next item, and so on and so on. So now you can actually use your refreshable Braille display, not only on your iPhone or your Mac, but also your Apple Watch as well, which is pretty amazing. And because I'm using a Braille display with an input Braille keyboard here, I can actually Braille into, or quote, type into a message. So if I'm sending a message to Tony, Alex, Greg, or Jess, I can just send a message via my Apple Watch using the Braille input keyboard. I don't have to dictate. I can just Braille on the keyboard. So as you can tell, there's a lot of flexibility for me, particularly as a Voiceover user, Braille user across the iPhone and the Apple Watch. But I just want to pass over now to Greg to talk a little bit more about inclusivity, and how from a low visions perspective, you can really adjust, particularly the iPad, to really suit lots of different people's individual needs. So thanks for listening to me for the moment, and I'll pass it over to you, Greg.
Thank you kindly there, David. I'm just going to broadcast my screen. I'm just waiting for Zoom to give me the countdown there. And so we're off and racing. So one of the things that you've seen in that conversation with David and with Jessica is this whole issue of personalisation. The cool thing for us is, let's go back a little bit. They're all got issues of inclusive design in there. And most importantly, we've walked across inclusive design every day for decades now. And it's that curb cut that's on the corner of every road. That simple little design enabled people to get across the road nice and easily. And it didn't matter whether you were in a wheelchair, whether you're on a push bike, you were walking, had a trolley. We've all benefited from that good design. And that's the thing, because it could be a stroller, could be work trolley. We've all benefited from good inclusive design. We've seen that inclusive design in the design of our cars. We've seen it in things like OXO grips. You think about an OXO grip potato peeler or vegetable peeler. Rather than the simple little skinny ones, this was designed to give good ease of grip. Now, absolutely essential for people with fine motor control problems, but also useful for everybody. So it inspires innovation. So we've seen that also in things like the Microsoft Game Controller. But most importantly, it's built into, that inclusion is what's built into every iOS, macOS, watchOS, you name it. It's built into the whole of the Apple ecosystem. And that's really, really powerful. Now, I wanted to start this conversation about personalization and low vision. I want you to think about, well, we personalize everything we do. Do you squeeze the toothpaste from the top or the bottom of the tube? How do you make a cup of tea or a cup of coffee? Are you somebody who puts the milk in first, the milk in last? Do you have milk? All of those things change how we have share those experiences. The beauty of what we want to do on our iOS devices, and I'm here on my iPad, is I can come in and personalize. And that's really, really important. Now, for me, I have my left eye as a prosthesis, a plastic fantastic, as I like to call it. And my right eye, I'm legally blind. So I'm blind in one eye, legally blind in the other. Now, so my needs are different to David's needs, Jessica's needs, your needs. But the beauty of good inclusive design, just like that curb cut, is the power to personalize. So when I go into my device and I've clicked on settings and I've then clicked on accessibility, I can see a whole range of different options that are on there for us to use straight from the start. Now, just focusing on these issues, one of the things I might want to do first off is just go into display and text. And I can turn on bold text, I can turn on larger text, I can increase contrast, I can differentiate with color if I wanted to. I can also play with filters depending upon what my eyes need. Remember, it's all about this power to personalize, which is absolutely crucial. I can also jump back out of accessibility for a moment and go to display and brightness. Question: do you want a light background or do you prefer the dark background? And do you want those features to come on? If I go back to light as my preferred, I can say automatically adjust, have light up until sunset, and after that time, move into the dark mode. And I've got night shift on to come on also from 10 to 7 for me in the morning. I can change a whole range of basic features there, but accessibility is where the real power of this lies. Now, I can, as we said, come in to display and text, and I would advise everybody just to come in here and have a play. Turn on the features that you want to turn on that work for you. So if I go into larger text, I'm going to be able to go in and adjust the text size. You'll notice as I do, when I change the slider from the small text size to the larger size, what happens? This is called dynamic type. And what it does is anything within the device, whether it's my iOS or iPad OS or whatever I'm using, it automatically adjusts to whatever those dynamic type settings are. Now, at the moment, we're seeing it happen here. The font size is adjusting to what I'm choosing on my on that slider. But it also works with things like messages, with Mail, Safari Reader, a whole range of different things right across the Apple ecosystem, but also other apps that use that access to dynamic type. That dynamic type feature is available to all developers. They've just got to plug into it when they're designing those apps. When they do that, they make a better experience for all of us, because what size we want this font to be changes depending upon our personal needs and, of course, our personal context, because it might be a permanent condition that we have. It could be a temporary condition that we have, such as having cataracts. You know, I need it now because I've got cataracts, but once the cataracts were removed, you may not need that feature. You may need it now as an emerging condition because of aging. It doesn't matter. The most important thing is you have that power to personalize. And really, that's what accessibility is about. It is about that power to personalize. The same when I go into Zoom. I can click on Zoom and you go, oh, how do I use this? Well, guess what? There in front of me, when I click on Zoom, it says to me, Zoom magnifies the entire screen. I can double tap with 3 fingers to zoom. I can drag 3 fingers to move it around the screen. I can double tap 3 fingers to drag and change the zoom. I have other options if I'm also using a keyboard or I want to set zoom regions. So if I double tap with 3 fingers, I can turn on my magnifier there. And as it says, drag with 3 fingers to move it around the screen. One of the things that I can also do is I can turn on the zoom controller. I love the little zoom controller because it means that I can now control it with 1 finger with that little zoom controller. And I also have other options. So I can tell it to choose a region. I can resize the screen. So when I click on resize screen, it then puts little dots around the zoom area, and I can readjust that size of what's now going to be zoomed. And of course, I can now control it with my device. All I've got to do is use that joystick and away I go. I can also change the level of magnification. Or if I wanted to, I can choose a filter where I might say I prefer everything to be grayscale.
Excuse me, Barry, can we just pause you there? Sorry, your screen is just still showing the larger accessibility sizes and not going through your presentation.
Oh.
Sorry, it's just been paused.
That's interesting. Are we back on now?
We are still seeing the large accessibility sizes under the...
Okay, I'm going to stop broadcasting for a second. And then what I will do, thank you for that, I will now go back in and share the screen and see if it's always the joys of when you're using different pieces that you, how it works when you're through sharing screen. Are we all right now?
We are seeing your homepage.
Lovely. Okay, so I'm now going to click back into settings. So that's just an issue of showing some of these things, then going through Zoom and then coming out to everybody. Well, let's go in here. Now, David talked about magnifier. Jess talked about magnifier. Now, I've got mine turned off. So I'm now going to turn it on. All I had to do was, as you saw, I went into accessibility, into vision, into the magnifier, and I turned it on. Now, why did I want to do that? Well, I can, as David said, and we can set it up for a back tap. I can also ask Siri. Now, I can personalize how I want to do it. I'm just going to drag down so I can do a search. I'm going to now type magnifier. And like David said, he also had it on his dock. So I'm just going to click it on and drag it down and add it onto my dock. Now, of course, it's not going to do it. Murphy's Law. I've got it open. Now, what else can I do when I've got it open? Well, I might want to also just open up my notes. There's my notes. I'm now going to drag my dock up. I'm going to click on the magnifier, and now I'm just going to click and drag so I can do a split screen. So now I've got my magnifier and I've got my notes open at the same time. Now, what does this enable me to do? Well, depending on where I am, I can now start to look at some notes. I can, of course, adjust those filters like David said, but I can also now start to type in what I'm seeing. And that's the beauty of it. I can have split screen. I'm just going to shut that off. I'm also now going to flick off a few of those bits and pieces. And the beauty of here now, I'm just going to go back to my main screen into settings. When I do that, in that split screen mode. Okay, we're just seeing my settings there, are we? Just confirming.
Yes.
Lovely, guys. Having that split screen means that I can do two tasks. So it could be reading a bill and just wanting to jot down some notes. Now I could have typed, but I could have also turned on Siri. But it gives you, that's the beauty of an iPad, is getting into that split screen mode. And of course, I can also adjust the size of what I've got. It also means if I had I could split screen two other things. It could be Safari and Notes or Safari and Pages, but you've got that capability to do that. And that's really important. But coming into here, you go, oh, crikey, Greg, they've shown so much stuff. How am I going to learn this? We've got the power to personalize is really important. But guess what? Apple has their user guide. I can hop onto the website. It's one of the links we'll send you, but I've also just downloaded it as a book. So I can click it on, go into accessibility, and you can see I can now go, oh, how do I do this magnifier Greg talked about? There it is. I can now start to go in, and I can, of course, change those font sizes just as we were talking about, and I can have a look at what to do. You've got that just-in-time capability. You've also got Jeanette Davies' great book, iPad Tips and Tricks. But you've got all these things to help support you to personalize exactly how you want to do it. And that's the most important thing. How do you want to go into settings and personalize your device? Just like you personalize how you make your cuppa, how you squeeze your toothpaste. What text size do you want? Do you want to come in here and also, because of your vision needs, reduce the level of motion that you're seeing so that you're getting rid of those crossfades? Do you want to come in and, like I do, turn on spoken content? And do I want to do it in different ways? Why do I want spoken content in? Sometimes because of my visual condition, I might want the device to read to me. Other times, I might want to do it just because I'm trying to multitask. I could be saying, look, I want to be able to keep listening to the book whilst I'm preparing vegetables for tea. And as you can see here, do I want it to speak a selection or do I want it to speak screen? And you'll see it says swipe down with two fingers from the top of the screen to hear the contents on the screen. So if I now go back into accessories, now it brings up the controller. And if I turned up the volume on my controller, you would be able to hear what it says. It hides itself. I'm just going to turn that off now. But you've got all of those great features that are in there that allow you to be able to personalize your device. And that's the most important thing. How do you want to personalize? Because that's the really important thing for you, is what do you need? What do you need to be able to do what you want to do to the best of your ability? So like Jess said, is it using Live Listen? I need to use Live Listen because, yeah, if you ask my family, they'll tell you I've got some listening issues as well as hearing issues as well as my vision. Live Listen helps me there. It might be that I want that bold text, I want that contrast, I want a whole range of things, but you've got the power to personalize. That's the absolutely crucial thing. Now, the beauty of it is all of that ability to personalize increases with each version of the operating system, with each device. That's the other thing that's really exciting. So like David was talking about, his watch is now, can hear, is louder. But also now all those features that we've now got, each time there's a system that's come out, we've got more features, just like Jess was showing in that whole paradigm of that long history of accessibility. Comes with that long history of accessibility is a long history of personalization. So what do you want to do? And how do you want to improve how you use life? That's the most important thing. You've got those features there. When you've got all of those features, one of the things that you can do is start to think about how you can enjoy life in different ways. So friends such as mine, David Woodbridge, not David Woodbridge, Luis Perez in the US. Now, Luis has retinitis pigmentosa. One of the things Luis wants to do is continue to take photos of his family as they grow up. Now, whether it's Luis, whether it's David, whether it's you or me, Voiceover enables a person with limited vision to continue to be a photographer. That's the thing. This is what's happening. This power to personalize, the power to take advantage of all these inbuilt accessibility features means that it innovates how we live, learn, and work. And that's what's really powerful to me, because for my needs, it means that, yes, I can continue to work. I can continue to work not only here in Australia, but overseas, the same as what David does. What do you want to get done? And how can you do it using socially valued, socially inclusive tools that are mainstream tools? They're not bespoke tools. And I think that's the other message, is looking at, yes, I've got an iPhone Pro. Why did I buy an iPhone Pro? Because that's the cheapest device for all the things that I want to do. It's socially valued, socially inclusive. But in the end, it's actually the cheaper device, because I'm not carrying 25 different devices, bespoke devices around. I'm carrying the one socially valued, socially inclusive device that fits in my pocket. And that's really powerful. So what do you want to do? That's the question. That's what today's about, is opening up those opportunities for you to think about and go, wow, how exciting is this? And go, I want to engage in life more, right? And that's the beauty. Grab it with both hands, leverage the technology, and go to places that you haven't even imagined. Thank you kindly.
Thank you, Greg, Jessica, and David, for such an interesting presentation today. Are there any questions from our attendees? Please feel free to ask questions. Now is the time to ask all your questions. I guess whilst our participants are thinking of questions to ask, were there any, I guess, any bits in your presentation that you had to rush through that you didn't get a chance to talk? This is an opportunity as well.
I'd probably make just a few comments too, Tony. So
Yeah.
with all this accessibility stuff, so we talked about, Greg was using his iPad, I was using my iPhone, the Apple Watch, Jess was also probably using a Mac, but all of this stuff, whilst you can turn on all this stuff, so you can turn on Zoom, screen magnification, you can turn on VoiceOver, all the accessibility stuff, you can also turn this stuff on and off whenever you like it. So we always talk about the access shortcut. So I can, on my iPhone, I can press my side button 3 times to turn VoiceOver on and off. If I was also using other accessibility options, I could press my side button, and not only would VoiceOver come up in a little dialog box, this part doesn't speak though, then I could choose, say, VoiceOver, Zoom, color identification, and all that sort of stuff. So you can do shortcuts like that as well. And the same on the Mac, the same on the Apple Watch. So all this stuff you can turn on and off, because what I used to get yelled at Vision Australia is, my husband's turned on this thing that keeps talking to him and I can't turn it off, or it's in large print, I can't see the screen. Well, anything you can turn on an iPhone, a Mac, or an Apple Watch, or anything else, you can always turn off as well. And the other thing which is really great, which Greg mentioned about the fact that when I originally got my iPhone, I did this really crazy workshop, and I literally had 30 things on my desk that my iPhone replaced. So Greg wasn't joking when he said it replaces 25 things, because you think about it, it replaces your talking GPS, it replaces your talking calculator, it replaces your talking daisy book, your talking to find out what the temperature is, your ebook reader, your whatever else thing you might be having that actually talks to you independently of anything else. And that's what's so powerful about having a quote mainstream device that really does everything we need from all the accessibility point of view, whether you're talking about sensory, physical, cognitive, or anything else. So, one device just does so many things. So it does come in quite handy. So I just thought I want to make those two major comments.
Yeah, and look, David, fully agree. The other one I would add, mate, is privacy and security, and that's another one to me. Privacy is absolutely core to all of us nowadays, but I know that Apple takes that very, very seriously. We're seeing it now with 14.5, which is due out, and there's all that discussion about Facebook it's now telling you when you're being tracked a lot more, which is important. But the beauty of this is nowadays, look, if I want a device that I can trust from a privacy and security perspective, it's going to be my Apple devices, because I'm not being tracked, but I also know it's more secure. So all the health data we've been talking about, that's when it goes into the health app there, it's nice and secure because it's in that enclave. And it's the same with, I'm using HomeKit to control part of my house. It's all connected back to your Apple ID. It's all part of that security. And for any of us with low vision or no vision, or if you've got other issues, making sure that privacy and security is front and center for us is really, really important.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. It's actually interesting, Greg. There's a new function in Safari, particularly on the Mac. There's a function called Privacy Report. So if you go onto any website and you click on this Privacy Report or activate it with Voiceover Privacy button, you can see all the trackers, advertising trackers and everything else that websites are trying to actually track your online, what you're doing on their websites. And I think the worst one of them all was actually imore.com, which is sort of a fairly major site for Apple, Android and everything else. And I think at one stage I counted 59 ad trackers just on that one website. Conversely, if you go to apple.com and you think, come on, let's just try on an Apple and see what they're doing, they have 0 trackers. So Apple really does take their privacy quite honestly well, because they don't do anything on their website. And when I'm talking about ad trackers and that sort of stuff, it's most of these trackers will actually, they tell what you can click on, they tell what pages you go to, they tell you if you scroll down, they can trace your geographic location, all that sort of really amazing sort of scary stuff that you don't realize it's going on in the background. And the fact that Safari just blocks it straight away is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And look, talking of privacy and security, David, you and I both are great users of Apple Pay. What does it mean? I know what it's meant for me, but what's it meant for you being able to use Apple Pay on your devices?
Yes, so rather than breaking my security contract with my bank and asking the person at the checkout to please put in my PIN number 1234, which by the way it isn't, I can just hold up my Apple Watch to the FPOS terminal and pay by just pressing the side button on my Apple Watch to pay with Apple Pay and on my iPhone. So it's secure. I even get a receipt back. For example, I shop at Aldi, so it tells me that it's how much I paid, where I paid it, and I don't have to give anybody information about my details, my credit card, PIN number, anything else, which is just really amazing. So I use Apple Pay all the time, even in the taxi. I'm always a little bit nervous about how much has been on the meter, so of course I can verify that on my Apple Pay. On the Apple Pay, because it just tells me, whatever the taxi company is, I've just paid $19.95 on the taxi. So I get confirmation that that's how much I paid with the driver using FPOS. So there's quite a few different situations where it comes in really handy.
So you've got the dignity of independence and the safety that goes around that as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great points. Have a question from Thomas. Just wondering if you, Greg and David, if you could tell us a bit about the HomePod and whether Apple is working with other technologies such as Samsung TVs. Example, Apple TV.
David, you've got a lot of HomePod,
I've got
so
lots
I'll defer to you at the moment.
All right. So the story with the HomePod at the moment is the newer Samsung TVs will allow you to AirPlay to HomePods. It's called AirPlay 2. They don't work in the same way as other companies do with broadcasting or streaming audio. There is, and it's quite funny because we had a talk about this the other week, but there is a bit of a consortium at the moment looking at, getting together Amazon, Google, Apple, and going, you know what, guys, wouldn't it be really good if we could talk all the same language? So I would expect in maybe the next several years that you buy a device from any manufacturer, hopefully, fingers crossed, and it will just work across your smart home devices. The one reason I've got HomePods over other things in my house most of the time is because if your internet goes down or your NBN has issues and your modem's mucking up and your data's low and everything else, because HomePods and other smart stuff use Bluetooth, it doesn't matter whether your internet's working or not. As long as your phone's working and your Bluetooth's on, you can still talk to your HomeKit devices. So I can still turn my bathroom fan on. I can turn my kitchen radio on. I can check the temperature in the lounge room. I can turn the lights on in my son's bedroom to irritate him to get out of bed in the morning, and just little things like that. So that's one of the good things about the HomePod in particular and the HomeKit. Now you might say, well, if the internet goes down, the HomePod's not going to work. That's true. So then you just go back to the Home app running on your iPhone, and you just double tap on whatever device, bathroom, Lachlan's room, Owen's room, in my case, and off it goes. So HomePod's a little bit more flexible than what other mainstream devices are at the moment that rely on the internet.
Yeah, and David, for people who are using, have got older products too, like I might have a light, I can buy a switch or a plug that sits in between the old style devices, and that make it work with HomeKit, can't I?
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm trying to convince my wife at the moment to get a door lock so I can wander up to the door and go, "Hey, it's me. I'm here. Open." And just through Siri and some authentication stuff, it'll just open the door for me. So that would be pretty awesome as well. But there's lots of different HomeKit devices coming out in the market, as well as other stuff as well. But yeah, the HomeKit market, HomeKit and smart devices in general, in some ways they've been a bit slow to take off, but it's gravitating more, and it's getting more common. So I think sort of watch this space and we'll see what happens.
Thank you, David and Greg. Another question from Georgina. Can I ask screen readers, which one works with a Mac?
Only one. That's easy. So it's like the iPhone. The only screen reader that works on an iPhone is VoiceOver, and the only screen reader that works on a Mac is VoiceOver. And interestingly, if you have a MacBook or whatever version it is with a trackpad, or you have an external trackpad that, for example, my wife uses on her iMac, the gestures that you use for VoiceOver on the Mac, on the trackpad, are exactly the same overall to the gestures you use with VoiceOver on the iPhone and the iPad. So I can flick left and right and double tap on my iPhone and my iPad, and I can flick left and right and double tap with VoiceOver on my Mac. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and that's really important, Tony, because one of the things is you're learning the one tool, and you can contextualize it across those devices, and that's lowers the cognitive load for any of us who are having to learn a screen reader. You go, yep, it just works. And of course, I'm working in government, and we love using VoiceOver on our devices in government as well.
Yeah, and another really cool tip that I would say to people, that if you use VoiceOver with a Bluetooth keyboard, so on your iPhone and your iPad, again, the keyboard commands that you use on that Bluetooth keyboard are exactly the same, yet again, on the ones that you use on the Mac where it's reasonable. So again, of course, there's not going to be sort of any home button function on the Mac, so that won't be available. But most of the commands, so again, I can quickly cross-platform jump between my iOS stuff, iPhone or iPad, over to my Mac, even the Apple TV, even the Apple Watch. So, everything is just consistent, and that's why I tend to use most of the Apple stuff for my work and home, because I don't have to think about another screen reader. I don't have to think about another set of keyboard commands. I don't have to think about a different Braille display. Just one Braille display and literally one screen reader across the whole lot does everything for me.
Yeah. And we're finding the same with students in particular primary and secondary. It's take an iPad, take a Braille display, and the learning opportunities are all there for you.
Yep. Awesome. Another question would be, can I use my Apple Watch to scan QR codes?
I didn't hear what you said then, Tony.
The question was, can I use an Apple Watch to scan QR codes?
Oh, right. I just thought,
No.
What did he say? No.
It's got to have a camera.
Yeah.
Because it's got to pick up that image and scan it and recognise it. So no, unfortunately, the current watches don't have a camera built into them.
Thanks.
Oh, you've gone quiet, Tony.
Looks like Tony's frozen actually on screen there.
Oh no, that's what you're
the joys of Parramatta Road on the internet, mate.
Busy reading. There's been lots of great positive responses from our participants today, thanking you all. There's just been a few questions about for people that are wanting a bit more one-to-one support in using their technology. So we're just promoting the Vision Australia Adaptive Technology Services.
Yeah, there's actually quite a few places that I recommend. So a good starting point is quite a few. So absolutely, Alex. The Vision Australia AT service, which you can get to by the main 1300 number. So that's 1300 847 466. So that number again is 1300 847 466. And if you ask to speak to the AT service, they can certainly give you some pointers in the right direction. And of course, we've also got our adaptive technology service as well, who can also train you up on all the stuff to do with all the stuff even we talked about today. Another really good resource is apple.com/accessibility. Now they've just updated that website, so you can literally pick any type of access stuff that you heard about today and a lot more, and it brings up this beautiful pop-up window that tells you all about that feature and effectively how to use it. That works out really well. The third thing I'd like to mention is there's a great community website called appleviz.com. So that's appleviz as in vision.com. And in there, they've just got apps and guidelines and blog articles and forums all about anything to do with Apple and accessibility for blind and low vision. Lots of recommendation for iOS apps, Mac apps, and all that sort of really cool stuff. So that's quite a good one. And the last one I want to mention, which is a huge saver for most blind and low vision people, because at the end of the day, computers are computers, wherever they're in your smartphone or your computer. And that's the Apple Accessibility Helpline. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, excluding leap year, you can call 1300 365 083. So that number again is 1300 365 083. And that will get in contact with the Apple Accessibility Help Desk. And they're there to help any person who has a disability deal with their Apple product. So it's not the general helpline, it's a disability helpline.
And that's what's really great about it, David, isn't it? The fact that it is a specialist helpline. And, mate, you forgot one other thing. There's this podcast, I know.
I didn't want to bet my own drum, though.
What's it called?
I see.
IC.
Thank
now,
you.
Do you know anything about the IC podcast, David?
I do. It's run by it's run by a very lovely person called David Woodbridge, who does lots of podcasts on Apple and other technologies. So I just finished one today talking about, yesterday about the MagSafe stuff that to do with the new iPhone 12s, where you can actually just pop your phone on a tablet, on a stand, or if you've got a wallet, it just MagSafes to the back of the iPhone and so on. That number again that I was talking about with the Apple accessibility is 1300 365 083. That's the Apple accessibility help desk line. And while I'm talking about great podcasts, I might as well just give a shout out to my Talking Tech podcast as well. I do on Vision Australia Radio. And that's on talkingtech.podbean.com. But it's also available if you just search for Vision Australia Talking Tech. But it's also on Vision Australia Radio every Tuesday at 4:30 Melbourne time. So there you go.
And David, I will say it, folks, because I know that David can be shy and humble and unassuming. His podcasts are listened to around the world. So it's not only is he respected here in Australia, but he is respected and listened to around the world. So hats off, mate.
Gotta stop embarrassing me on a webinar, mate. I'll get you later. But look, seriously too, if you wanted to also follow me on Twitter, because we can give our contact details then. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's just D Woodbridge. So that's D for David Woodbridge. And that's where I post a lot of stuff, what's happening on the Twitter universe. Because I'm an Apple geek, it's mainly probably all about Apple, but I do throw the occasional stuff in there as well. And can I also remind people finally that Vision Australia ourselves, particularly the Vision Store, where Alex, myself and Tony are part of, we're also an Apple reseller. So if you want to buy an Apple product, buy it from us and have it trained on by us, then you can buy an Apple product, whether it's an Apple Watch, an iPad, a Mac, and so on, from Vision Australia itself, and then we'll even train you up on it. So you're getting the benefit of buying it from Vision Australia, you know where you're getting it from, and you can also get it trained upon it by our Adaptive Technology staff as well. So that's all in one type service, if you like.
So a trusted product with a trusted service.
Indeed, yeah.
Yes, I have just got a burning question, and so does Vicky. Is there any tips on reading or magnifying music sheet? Sheet music. Any particular apps or advice?
There's a couple again. Apple Viz, as David has mentioned, has got some great examples there, but it also depends on what app you want to use that you're using for reading music, because you can get some great music notation software that will run on, particularly on the iOS devices. So if you're just going to use, if it's physical music, the simple thing is to buy yourself a little tripod or stand that you can put your device on, so it can keep it stable, and you can just put the music behind that. But otherwise, what I would be looking at is buying some of the third-party software that's out there, so that you can then take advantage of what they're able to do, and we can send through some links. But a lot of those are already on Apple Viz, and that's where I'd be going to have a look at. Because you'll get a warts and all, as always, with Apple Viz. That's what I love about it, a warts and all conversation about what those apps can and can't do.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Greg. There is so much information to compile from this presentation, and I just want to thank everyone for attending today. We will have this presentation available on our website with the keynotes. If you do have any further questions, please don't hesitate to call the Vision Store team, which is where I'm a part of, on 1300 8474666, or you can email as well, visionstore@visionaustralia.org, if you have any further questions or would like to discuss anything about this webinar today. At the end of this webinar, there will be a short survey for you to complete. Any feedback that you can provide will assist us in improving our content and delivering for future webinars. Would love for you to join us again at our next Exploring Technology with David Woodbridge webinar next month. The topic is yet to be confirmed, so please check out your emails for our website for further information. Thank you so much, and goodbye.
Take care, everyone.